I detached my IV, got up out of the bed, only the scrubs on, like I didn't even have underwear on, like the back's open, so my ass is hanging out. So I walked out really fast and they were like, "Sir, you need to stay in your room. Like, what are you doing?" And I ran to the elevator where it was, and I have nurses chasing me. I get in, doors open, and there's a security guard waiting for me. Push past him, and I go into the x-ray room, and I say, "They have not given me an x-ray yet." And the nurse says, "We'll get you in right now." And so I got the x-ray done and then was able to go home that night. That is an interesting story about the cancer. My name's Jacob Donaldson. I've lived in New York for about 10 years now. I'm originally from Eastern Washington. I was born in Walla Walla, Washington. I'm an actor, a fundraiser, a bartender.
So moving to New York, how is it like dealing with the so-called rat race?
I've lived in New York longer than I've lived in a single city anywhere else, actually. It's a race everywhere, I guess. But I love this city, and I moved here for opportunity. I moved here to be an actor, to be in the center, in the locus of where things happen. And I guess it can be fast. Yeah, I don't know. I'm more comfortable here than anywhere else.
Like, what were some things that you had to deal with, from finding it out and the whole process of?
I found out when I was 24 that I had cancer. It was a lot of waiting. I had to do a major surgery to figure out if it had spread. Where it was, I had stage 3 cancer. I had really severe cancer, which could have killed me. But they wouldn't know if it had gone to the rest of my body until after I did a major operation where they basically cut me open from my chest to my groin and removed all the lymph nodes in my abdomen. And then I had to wait a couple weeks in the hospital after that big surgery to find out if I was actually sick or not. Luckily, I wasn't, and so I didn't have to do any chemo or radiation. It was scary. I was young and suddenly had to contend with the idea that I could die soon. And I think the biggest thing I took away from all of that is that death is just a thing that happens. It's a part of life, and worry about it and anxiety doesn't solve anything.
When you found out you had cancer, how were you able to cope with that type of news coming very, abruptly to you?
I went in for a surgery for something that wasn't supposed to be very serious. So I went under anesthesia and I didn't know that I had cancer or anything. In the course of the operation, they found a big tumor. And so when I woke up from the surgery, it was a big surprise. Luckily, my mom was there. Thank God for that. But my mom told me that they found a massive tumor, and then I didn't know anything and I had to stay in the hospital for a little while. I think at first was just shock, and I told all my friends immediately. I stayed overnight for the next day for them to take an x-ray and do my blood work to figure out if it had spread or anything. And I decided to stay overnight because they would be able to give me an answer early in the morning instead of like having to come back the next day. And I was there, and in the morning, the lines were full. They couldn't give me an x-ray or do my blood work. It came around noon. Still, I hadn't gotten the x-ray or anything like that. So I'm just waiting. I don't know anything about what's going on. And then around like 2 p.m., they finally took me down to the x-ray room. And I was next in line. They set me up for the x-ray. And then a nurse came in and said, "Oh, you didn't get your blood work done, so we can't do the x-ray right now. You need to go back up to your hospital room." So they wheeled me back. They took my blood work, but that lab was going to close at 5 p.m. If I was there until that point, they were going to charge me to stay at the hospital another night. I was waiting. I did my blood work. They were not taking me to do the x-ray. and it was like 4:30 in the afternoon. I knew it was closing. I kept harassing the nurses, asking the nurses, can I go get my x-ray? I don't want to stay here another night. My mom is talking to the nurses, whatever. What I did was I detached my IV and got up out of the bed with like only the scrubs on. Like I didn't even have underwear on, like the back's open, so my ass is hanging out. And I knew where to go for the x-ray room. And so I walked out really fast and they were like, sir, you need to stay in your room. Like, what are you doing? And I ran to the elevator where it was, and I have nurses chasing me. I get in, I press the button to go to the floor for the x-ray room. I get down there and the door's open and there's a security guard waiting for me. And I push past him and I go into the x-ray room and I say, they have not given me an x-ray yet because they say that there's still a wait for it. I need to get the x-ray done right now because I can't afford to stay here another night. Can you see me right now? And the nurse says, yeah, we're not waiting on anyone. We haven't heard from anyone that you were waiting for an x-ray. We'll get you in right now. And so I got the x-ray done and then was able to go home that night. I don't remember the original question, but that is an interesting story about cancer.
So Jacob, what was the recovery process like of cancer?
I had a major surgery for the cancer. And until that was done, I wouldn't know if it had spread to the rest of my body for 2 weeks. And I had to wait in the hospital recovering after that major surgery. During that time was really challenging because I didn't know if I was going to die or how bad it was. And I had to just wait. And my dad told me the whole time that to hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. And so I mentally got to a place where I was okay dying. Luckily, I got good news and that wasn't the case. And so I didn't have to do chemo. I didn't have to do radiation. And I had beat cancer, and the whole thing was only like a month and a half, the whole process. I went home to Denver after that time. I think the recovery, being around family and friends, my friend Dan in Denver was a really good support. I spent a ton of time with him. He didn't have a job at the time, and so we were able to hang out a ton. But just being around people who loved me and believed in me and supported me, my parents, my friends, my siblings, I guess that gave me strength and hope.
What are some tips you have for other people who has cancer or just got the use of?
Yeah, I mean, cancer is a different experience for everybody. Like, I didn't have to do radiation or chemo, thank God. Some people have a lot worse, and I couldn't give advice to people who are going through that for years at a time. But what I can say to anybody who maybe has gotten the news is to not give up hope. Medicine and technology is better now than it ever has been. Hang on to that, but also make peace with your life. And that's not only for people who are terminally ill, but I think everybody should always live with the understanding that it can all go at any moment, and to appreciate what you do have in your life right now. Live in a way that if you left at this moment, you could be proud of your life.